Yeah, and I do wonder, Chris Lipe being, I think, one of the higher ranked seeds, he must have been upset in the first round as well, like we saw on stream with Dave and Walker.
And for the second game in a row, the player going first has drawn the first blank out of the bag. And I think Austin is going to take very little time. So basically, what I would do, the only thing I would be thinking about if I was Austin is, can I play a bingo that does not make my blank an E, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to place that valuable E on the board if I don't have to, because the E is so good for bingos for either player, right? So if you play your E, you give your opponent the first crack at potentially playing something through that E that they might not have had before. So it looks like he's not going to worry about that and just play sported. That's fine. There's nothing terribly wrong with this play. I think if I was playing, I would probably consider taking a slight. So the problem is they don't double the P, right? So
Right.
would you consider taking 2 fewer points to not place an E on the board?
No, I wouldn't.
2 points is worth it. Okay, so Austin's correctly intuited that here.
Yeah, I mean, that said, like, right to take the time. I mean, I think he probably was pretty quickly able to realize that, like, look, you're gonna have to make the blank of a vowel. So A-E-I-O-U-Y. He probably knew that the only things were E and I. But I think in this case, maybe I would have played red tops myself, probably. So
yeah, interesting. Yeah, good point from Wolfram saying it takes an A. Asported is a word. That's something that I do expect that both players will be thinking of and potentially see. As you see Chris with his rack of JQX on it. I think this is a very clever play to play joked. Look at what that does for his X, everybody. You can just see that now, even though Chris had 3 of those heavy-hitting tiles all on his rack at once, he's created a great place for his X to go down if he's able to draw an A in particular, making Ka. Let's see if he does. Oh, man.
Yeah. This is what I said. Look for that offense. Austin intentionally made a play that opened a big hook. I mean, that does not surprise me for his style of play, and I think we may be seeing a big one, like a big high scoring open game, which I suspect will be fun for the viewers.
Yeah, many of you guys are potentially in for a treat. But just also want to say hello to Natalie Zed. Thanks for watching. Pamela Hall says she's rooting for Chris. I'm sure that Chris has many fans out there that are rooting for him, as does Austin. I think these are 2 players that are pretty popular within the Scrabble world. So yeah, you can see that even though Austin struck first with the bingo, Chris now has the second blank. He has QU and an X on his rack. The only trick is, how is he going to sort of productively use all of that stuff? And we'll just have to see. It's going to be tough. Sometimes you can have too much of a good thing with all of these heavy-hitting tiles.
I mean, we'll see what Austin does. I think Chris's biggest saving grace right now is that the board will look different. Most likely. I mean, Austin could exchange, but
Austin, he could, but I think we can see, based on the nice balanced combination of vowels and consonants that Austin does have, he is going to play something here. And what he does play, it's not sure. He has a couple different options. If he wants, he could play something like Yelp off of Joked for a pretty good score. You see he has those letters lined up on his rack right now. That seems like a pretty reasonable choice. Another Jello Mocha says Pentel. Yeah, that's another idea.
It wouldn't surprise me if Austin wanted to take the volatility and the points. I know, again, without sounding like too much of a broken record, does tend to play those open boards. But Yelp does feel like a nice, straightforward, don't do anything too crazy, keep a good leave. It kind of accomplishes everything, right? Everything that you look for in like just a solid play.
Yeah, it ticks all of those boxes of score. It's good in the present, nice score. Good in the future. ENT is going to hit the E and D and T of sported relatively effectively. Oh, certainly the S of sported. That would be the number one thing that it can hit.
Yeah.
So there we do see Yelp. So Austin's chances of getting a bingo down on his next turn are pretty good here. Really good suggestion by 14 Domino. Oryx through the R of sported. It burns the blank, but now it scores enormously well through there. I wonder if that's worth burning the blank. At this level in tournaments, you definitely think of the blank as being a tile that is best used for playing bingos. But when you can get a play of 70 odd points by burning the blank, even if it's not a bingo, that's fine. The blank is for getting big scores, however you can get them. Yeah, and look at that. He's just going to play Yex.
Yeah,
interesting.
That's what I was going to say as a Sidewinder points out. You hit with a lot of the low tiles, you will low scoring tiles, you will hit most likely bingo next turn.
Great point. Yeah. Conquer comes to mind as a play that's pretty likely. Yeah, a couple other things. Coquinas. Wow. So you can get Conquian or something like that. Oh, that might not fit anywhere. Yeah. Wow. So an interesting choice. So just to emphasize though, 40 points more would have been Oryx there through the R of sported. So instead of just playing the X, you play O and Joe and then KY as well. A really, really high scoring option. But the bingo chances that you have of just dumping your X by itself are really good. So those were really close plays. I'm not 100% sure which of those two that I favor, actually. I don't know. 40 points is a lot to give up. So it's close. I'm sure it's very close.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, in a tournament, I'd probably actually sit there. I'd actually spend probably 2 or 3 minutes on this play, actually figuring out like, oh, I see Cot Queen, I see Coquinas, Conquer, whatever, and actually figure out like, if I play X, how likely am I to draw a bingo next turn, and kind of make an inference around whether or not the S or the E, the blank E, would still be there. So I think that's a good example of a play where you'd actually want to take. I would think probably 3 or 4 minutes here, unless you can calculate probability really fast. Also worth noting though, with Yex is one of the key draws is an A, but if he plays Oryx, you could see Quat and a sported next turn. So without getting too deep into the strategy, I can see the appeal of Oryx.
Makes sense, yeah. And being pointed out in the chat also that Austin has a bingo of ententes through the E of sported. I'm sure he's just doing some, double checking of some of the other letters on the board. This would be very surprising if Austin doesn't eventually spot this word. I wonder if this is going to be a theme though. Even for some of these elite players, I know that players like Dave and Austin during the the COVID era, we've been playing a lot of online Scrabble, and I think there's probably to a certain extent there might be an adjustment period to get back to over the board Scrabble. I'm just wondering if maybe we're going to see a couple mistakes that we might not normally see if players were playing more consistently over the board. Do you think that's possible, Conrad?
I think it's possible. I mean, I will say for Dave, he has played a few tournaments lately. We've been able to have some in the Pacific Northwest over the last few months. And I don't know if Austin is playing at home with Lindsay or perhaps Lila. I would assume so. So I feel like these two have good outlets to play in person. But as I sort of mentioned earlier on, that's if there's anything that I've found, from watching many of Austin's games in the past, is he sometimes just misses words. And we just saw it.
that is a very surprising one. It's not only that he just missed ententes, and again, as is being pointed out in the chat, part of why that is possibly because seeing your bingos through that blank tile on the board is a little bit more difficult. But I'm even kind of surprised by the play Austin made using both of his E's there and leaving himself, I think his leave there was STTN, if I'm not mistaken. So that's just a little surprising all around. We'll see how this unfolds. Austin is still doing well. Sorry, I have to update his score, everybody. It is now 123 for Austin to 63 for Chris. That's on me. The score is now correct. Hey, Jalopik, how are you doing? Nice to have you aboard. If you're just joining, this is round 2 of our first day. We're going to be playing 8 rounds today at the Crescent City Cup 2022, brought to you by Scrabble Go. And Austin's just missed a bingo here, and we've seen both Dave Wiegand and Austin Shin now miss a bingo in their first 2 games. That is very rare. We could run this tournament a bunch more times in future years, and you're not going to see that very frequently. So kind of like a lightning strike for us here.
So how do you feel as a commentator, knowing you're also one of the top players? Does that make you really just want to be there playing, or like how do you feel?
I could just as easily ask you that question, but of course
I asked first.
You did ask first, and basically I feel like for a tournament like this that really is one of the biggest, baddest tournaments in North America on the circuit, it definitely does give me a little bit of FOMO. But I do also feel super passionate about presenting our game to the world in a really accessible and fun way. So I feel like, honestly, there's enough other players at my level out there that let them take care of the play. And I would love to help out on this end and try to sort of continue Scrabble's growth on online platforms. I'll get my chance to play. I'll have ample chances to play in the future, and I will do my best to stay sharp enough to not embarrass myself too much. So that's my stance, I would say. As we see Quap about to be played here by Chris with his QU, that looks pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like the only thing you really want to see something better there, but it is what it is.
Yeah, QU is just one of those things that he's got that blank, Chris does, and the Q is not really going to help you to bingo with it very often. We're going to see Austin play Chin nearly instantaneously. I think I would be very, very surprised if we don't see that go down. Yeah, well, maybe I don't know. Maybe he won't want to keep BOTTS. I'm not sure. I would certainly play Chin.
Oh, I would assume, that Chin is going down.
Austin Chin.
Chin.
Yeah, so, look at Chris's rack. He isn't uncanned a word, or uncanny?
Uncanny and asported, as Jalopik calls out.
Oh,
how's it going, Chalky?
Yeah. Hey, Chalky, how are you? Good to have you aboard. So, Chris with the 3 ends. That is normally a death sentence for playing a bingo, but I'm pretty sure we will see Chris playing a bingo on his next turn. Again, this is the value of the blank tile in Scrabble, right? Normally, 3 ends is absolutely toxic. There's no way that you're often going to have any kind of good scores with a combination like that, but the blank makes everything possible in Scrabble. You can do so much more with it just because it allows you to turn some of these terrible letter combinations into things like bingos, high scoring plays. This is why Scrabble players love those 2 blanks in the set, and it's why if you're a newer player to Scrabble, the blank is very difficult to use, right? It's the best tile in the game. It's also the most difficult to use. So it's a tile that really showcases the skill cap of the game of Scrabble, being able to turn it into any letter in the alphabet. Not easy, but at this level, you see players doing some cool stuff. Oh, and look at this. Okay, so uncanned. This is a great play, but not the best play available.
And to be totally honest, like I was gonna say this if he was looking for a little longer, I bet I would have made the same mistake. It's just, it's not like uncanned. Like you might notice that, but you just don't think like Wait,
I don't.
Uncanny, like it's a common word. We all know it. It's like
I wouldn't even. Yeah, uncanned is a totally irregular word. The problem is I would even not realize necessarily that it would fit with a sported until I looked more carefully. I might think that the U of quap actually blocked any plays there, right? But actually, uncanny does just barely fit in that spot. So, but again, this is still a fine play by Chris, but uncanny would have scored 9 more points, and it would have avoided opening such a nice set of tiles to play through and a triple word score that's quite so open to hit. There still would have been a triple word score open after uncanny. It would have been much more difficult to play to, though, because you would have a U that you would have to hook onto along the left side of the board. So meanwhile, Chris draws thrives on his rack. So depending on what Austin goes with here, we'll see. But Chris is on the verge of landing another big punch. I don't necessarily see where he's going to play it right now, but we'll see.
See what happens.
What happens, right? It's possible. So the game is pretty much knotted now. Hey, Blue Skies. Nice to have you along.
So here's a question for you, Will. So if you were having like a Thanksgiving cook-off between multiple turkeys, would you try to outbaste your fellow chef?
That's so funny because if I won, I would definitely be able to outboast about it. But I don't think I would be able to outbaste my opponent in the cooking contest. Yeah, that's a great question. So there's so many words in the Scrabble dictionary, these weird, out blank words, right? Out gnaw, out, weird past tenses. Thinking it's definitely helpful to, when you have those letters, OUT on your rack, set aside the rest of your letters and see what you have. I don't think Austin is going to try outbased here. I guess it's interesting. It's a lot of points for him to play besported if he thinks about it, actually. That is a 39-point play, leaving decent letters, not great. You wouldn't want to give up your E if you didn't have to, but that's a pretty reasonable choice for him, I guess. He doesn't have any really good plays through the O of uncanned. I think maybe about is the best that I can find. It might be he's getting ready to play that, and he plays Buteo instead. If he had played, so that's so interesting. He plays Buteo for a few more points than about. I think that's fine. 3 more points. Yeah, I don't know. But it turns out it's going to give a bingo back. Yeah. It's a big difference between these two plays.
Yeah, and definitely don't play the phony here. Make sure you play the right word.
Yeah, okay. So Conrad is alluding to the fact we were just talking about the prefix OUT. Another good prefix, over, right? There are a lot of Scrabble words that start with over. And overhit is a word here. Don't try any anagrams of that. I don't know. Clever people in the chat may already be catching our drift here, but we'll just have to see. I'm pretty sure Chris will see this. So, but then again, Austin in response has a really good rack waiting to strike back. So there's going to be some fireworks coming shortly in this game. Let me get Austin's score updated. So currently the score 183 to 156 in favor of Austin. And we will just have to see. I think I like Chris's chances of seeing his bingo here. But again, the longer, when you're watching these games take place, when there really is a pretty obvious place to bingo, if you see it, the longer that time elapses and the player doesn't spot it, I worry more and more that they're going to miss it. So in Chris's shoes, I'm hoping that maybe he'll have that epiphany. Maybe he's looking through the C, the A, and the N of uncanned just to be sure that there isn't anything better, and then we'll see the bingo go down. So let's see.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't played yet, you would think that like it's pretty clearly there. But
it is a little bit off the beaten path in his defense. Thinking about a bingo from that O of Buteo is not, that's maybe the last place that I would look here.
Yeah, though I would counter with like, over. Everyone loves you have a V. What's the first thing you think of when you have a V? Ooh, do I have over?
It's a very good point. Very, very good point. So we'll just have to see. We will see.
Yeah. He also, it's possible he doesn't know it. I mean, that's a Colin, right? So it's possible that for some like because he started studying Colin's words later on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Never know.
So okay, here it comes. All right. After the deliberation period, we do see over hits. That is a valid bingo for Chris, and he is going to temporarily take a nice lead. Austin is definitely going to find somewhere to bingo here with this rack. I would almost, I'm going to assume that with a rack of waiters, he will have somewhere to play. Oh, just waitress to the S of sported is fine. Yeah. A couple bingos are about to go down for both players here. So let's see what Chris draws. This is kind of important now. If Chris draws well, he could potentially take command of the game back from Austin. If he draws poorly, maybe not. Looks like, I was going to say, I felt like Chris, I saw that THS on his rack, but then the 3 I's.
Yeah.
To spoil. Again, we're seeing this. Just like for Dave Wiegand in the previous game, he was overwhelmed by eyes at a very bad time. That's going to make it tougher for Chris. He'll at least have to spend one turn trying to manage that eye overload as Austin is about to play his highest scoring bingo here of waitress for 76 points to retake the lead, but only narrowly. Yeah. So the score after this is going to be very close still, 259-236.
So here's a question for you, Will, as someone who is, your reputation precedes you in terms of your word knowledge. Wolfram points out like he's always been bothered that you can overhit, but you cannot underhit, and I feel like there is a very bad matchup of words that start with over compared to their partners that would start with under, where the under word is not good, the over word is good. How do you keep stuff like that apart? Because I suck at it.
It's a good question. I wish I knew how my brain works in that regard. I just feel like the best answer that I have for you is just by doing that sort of prep beforehand and studying the dictionary in a systematic way. I sort of have what I call kind of like a spider sense. Like I just get this little tingle in my brain when there's a word that gets played that doesn't look right to me. And I have to say that spider sense is getting weaker as I get older. I feel like I make more mistakes with that than I used to. In my early years as a Scrabble player, that was nearly infallible. I feel like I was almost always correct. And for whatever reason, it's sort of steered me a little more wrong over the last few years than it used to, but still pretty good success rate, I would say. But if you're going to look at the dictionary and try to find logic between which words are good and which words are not, you are going to be sorely disappointed. And that's true for any dictionary you could use. I could come up with incredible examples, no matter what dictionary you focus on, of weird inconsistencies and things that don't make sense. So, I wish I had a better answer, but that's it's kind of like in this game, the dictionary is kind of like our rule book or our move set, right? Like,
it's our game pieces. Yeah.
It's our game pieces. You think the game pieces in Scrabble would be the letters, but actually it's much more, the analogy holds much better if you think of the words as the game pieces. And in that sense, it can make you crazy when there are those inconsistencies with the rule set of the game. But ultimately, knowing the dictionary really well is essentially in Scrabble sort of like knowing the game pieces of the game And then being able to deploy those pieces successfully is really the rewarding part of the game. That's why people learn the dictionary obsessively, because playing this game at a high level is so fun. It is so alluring that you're willing to make those sacrifices and to embrace, frankly, any dictionary that Scrabble uses has its flaws, has its weird idiosyncrasies. You're willing to embrace those idiosyncrasies because the game itself is so fun when you learn the move set. So yeah, I mean, that's as best as I can put it. Yeah, it takes a lot of time and effort to get to that point for sure. And you can see even the best in the world, every now and then, make those mistakes, get their wires crossed. That's what makes the game fun. It's not easy.
Yeah. Well, let's take it from words to strategy. What would you play here? Shiai, Tahini, Iwi?
Shiai pointed out that's actually
where's your head at?
Shiai looks pretty good. That scores quite a lot of points. The S also, as you alluded to last game, after Dave's bingo of diarizes, it placed that S out in space. But not every S is created equal. We love having the S on our rack, but we love it more when there's an obvious spot on the board where you can pluralize a word and end a 7-letter word with an S. And that doesn't really exist here. There are no great places for the S to end a long word. And that, obviously, the S is still a great tile, but it's not quite as good as usual. It's a good point by Jello Mochas. Yeah, that's a really good point. You keeping that S when there's only when you have the last one. It does give you a lot more flexibility to eventually make setups with it, to be aggressive with it. But I'm okay with Shiai here, I think. I do like it. Tahini is the other cool play. I guess that's being proposed through the top N of uncanned. That looks like a decent option as well. I wouldn't quibble with that, but I do like the extra points for Shiai here.
Yeah.
So that's going to give Chris a narrow lead. We're kind of seesawing now between the two players. They each are making their plays to grab the lead from the other. So a nice, close back and forth battle between these two. And we're getting into, let's see, maybe it's starting to be tracking time.
Yeah. One thing I will say with Shiai is it does open one bingo lane that is kind of nice for these players when there are no S's left. There's some hope to play next to that I, or maybe in rare cases next to AS, but.
Good point. Yeah. There were not very many good lanes to play a 7-letter word on the board prior to Shiai, and now, as Conrad said, you can see off of that I of Shiai to the left, there are now a lot of letters that fit there, and allow a 7-letter word to go down. So we'll see if this game kind of becomes a race to that spot, especially because I'm not imagining that lane getting blocked anytime soon. It doesn't offer very good scoring potential. The only thing it does offer is a place for a 7-letter word to go down with that first letter. So, all right, Austin playing odd on the right side of Waitress for slightly fewer points. He could have played it on the left side for 2 more points without really offering a ton back to Chris. So I don't know. It's probably close. Also, I wonder why not Dodo there.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting was Dodo, to be honest. Oh my God, do they have the same 7 tiles?
Wow. Holy crap.
I don't think I've ever seen that in all the years I've been playing Scrabble. I'm going to take a screenshot of this.
Incredible. I am so glad we have this on stream. I've never, as Conrad said, I have never, ever seen this. Both players have identical racks. Wow. What can you even say? I've literally, in all my years playing this game, never seen this before.
Yeah. I've seen the person next to me has my opponent's rack. Or I'm sorry, the person next to me has my rack. I've seen that before.
Unbelievable.
And they had the same amount of time at one point too.
They crossed. Scores. Yeah, they crossed into the same time too.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's truly
unbelievable.
I've never seen that before. It doesn't have a great deal of relevance to the actual future of the game, except that I guess it slightly favors Chris just because he will have his pick of the best possible play that he can find with these letters, and then Austin will have to content himself with his second favorite choice. Right?
Yeah, he's gonna be like, "Oh, but I was thinking of making. I
wanted
play.
that spot." Yeah.
and we have all had that moment where like your opponent makes, and sometimes even makes the exact play that you were gonna make, and you're like, "Oh, but I had the other M. I was gonna play that."
Exactly. Right. Like that every so often. Yeah, this would be funny too if Chris somehow makes a play that gives Austin a really nice scoring opportunity back, right? Like you could imagine maybe Chris plays like Oma and a Sported or something like that. And does that, I don't know if that gives, I don't even think that gives anything back. So that would be a perfectly fine play for him.
In Red or something, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe he's not going to play Oma and a Sported on the left side of the board just because it opens a triple unnecessarily. He can't know that Austin doesn't really have a great way to attack that spot. I would guess maybe he'll play Oma alongside over hits, making show him and Ita. That could be a decent play. And Austin, that play is probably one that Austin's looking at right now. Or maybe he'll eventually consider it. But this, I mean, the interesting thing is they have the exact same rack, and it's not that good of a rack. There's not going to be that easy of a play to spot here, I don't think. I don't think there's going to be a play that makes either of them say, I definitely want to play this, right?
I mean, Oma was the only thing that I saw that I was like, oh, yep, that seems pretty clear. I mean, well, I guess there's two spots for it, right? So one of them can play Oma in one spot, and one of them can play Oma
in the other.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Actually, that might happen.
An interesting suggestion of just meet in that same spot parallel to overhits, making EMRESHA Shah and hit. That would potentially be solid. The nice thing there's that play. Nice play by Chris. Yeah. The nice thing about this is keeping that leave of TIER. He does have a pretty good chance of hitting a bingo on that lane off of Shii with that, right? Like if it starts with a T, if he draws a 7-letter word starting with a T, he's in business there. Yeah, so Austin, I'm trying to read Austin's behavior here and see what he's thinking. Not much you can tell.
So the other Oma is probably better, I think, and so I think Chris actually just missed a Sported, and I kind of wondered that earlier on. So this does kind of beg the question of whether Austin is now going to play the better Oma.
Yeah, I'm guessing that that would be so funny if that happens. Yeah. So Oma followed by Oma, and folks in the chat are pointing out that Chris has managed to draw. That's why that EIRT leave is so good. You can draw stuff like FIO and potentially still bingo. The N in the lower left corner is going to yield a huge bingo to the triple of Notifier for Chris on the next turn. I really, really doubt that's ever getting blocked.
It would be pretty hard to block, even if you had your pick of the pool. So looks like they both missed a Sported, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. I would think it's probably enough points to play. And instead, Moi is the play by Austin, which is a perfectly solid play. And wait a second. What
is happening? What are you doing?
Wow. Oh,
guys, slow down. Oh, my God.
That is a stunner. That is stunning. Okay, I am amazed by that. Okay, so hold on. That is it's a cool play, obviously, to play 4x there with your FO, but that is frankly a huge mistake. 4x for 30. Yeah, 4x for 32. You had Notifier for 86 available. That's a 54-point swing, and Chris's rack really has gotten no better. So that gives Austin a chance to play off a couple of his A's, of which he had 3. So now this really does become a race for that bingo, which Chris should have won already, right? He should have won that race for a bingo, but he let a bingo get past him there. So score now is Chris is still narrowly ahead, but if Chris can't bingo, which I don't believe he can here, Austin now has a Z ready to sort of seize control of the score. Wow, that is a shocking swing of events there. So we'll just see what Chris does. So the nice thing for Chris is, unlike us, we're sitting here from the omniscient viewpoint as commentators, right? Having access to all the resources we have. Chris doesn't know. If somebody were to now run up to him and tell him you missed Notifier, that would be devastating, right? That would really upset me to know that I missed that, but he doesn't have to worry about that. He can stay calm. He can stay focused, and hopefully he can buckle down and make some good plays down the stretch of the game. So, yeah, we'll see. This is a rack that really looks like a Sported would be really helpful to him to play something there.
I'm going to say at this point, I don't think either of them see a Sported.
Yeah, probably.
I really don't.
That might be escaping their notice by now, which is, right now that A hook is not the best and baddest hook. It's nice to see, but it's currently, at least, it's not devastating to miss that. It would certainly be nice to see a play like Air go down for 17 points to get rid of. So Chris's most pressing issue here, he doesn't have a 7-letter bingo. He has letters that are really close to bingos, but the 2 I's and 2 R's. He needs to make a play that gets rid of an I and an R here. And, that we'll see. There are ways that he can do that. He could play Air and a Sported. Maybe if he doesn't do that, he has to play something like Ronnie through the N of uncanned. That wouldn't be that much worse. So.
Yeah. Slight teaching moment here. So, Chris is going to play something, I assume Air, to kind of keep the board closed and be up like 40. This is, I guess he's not. Right, because he probably didn't see a Sported. Still, this is one of those situations where, with Chris having, a 40-ish point lead, where I think a lot of people would be inclined to try to block the I there with Shiai, and that's sort of the thing I would tell people, like, leave that lane open. Like, the worst they're ever going to score is 60-some points, and they're going to give you a huge comeback. Let them fish for that spot. So just interesting meta game, but it does look like a quick Zell and ads coming down from Austin, and if Chris does not bingo now,
there are limits.
I'm going home.
There are limits. There are limits to what we could imagine, and I think this would stretch those beyond comprehension if Chris were to miss Outlier here. Plurmerant says, I can do this bingo. Pog, I think this one is okay. Here it comes. Outlier for 63. That is going to give, and that E would be so nice in a different spot.
That I would be very nice in that spot.
Oh, wow. It so is. I didn't get to there. So, wow, look at this. So Chris gets his bingo down, but there are counter bingos available for Austin through this I, and I really do feel like, let's see what Chris draws here. Let me get the tracking for you guys to show what Austin is looking at. Stand by for that.
And while you're doing that, I mean, it won't matter in this game because there's no more S's or blanks left, but a word like turbinal, like, I don't know. Are you ready to put the game on the line with that taking an S or not? I mean, well, you probably are, but like most people, like, I don't think I would have remembered 100% that turbinal took an S.
Yeah, that's That's not my forte, frankly, is knowing the hooks on words like that. And as you said, in this case, mercifully for Austin,
it doesn't matter this time.
It literally does not matter. There's no blanks, no S's. The tracking in the upper right hand is from Austin's standpoint. So Austin is about to play. He can look, you can see he's literally looking, he's doing his bookkeeping right now. He's probably saying, well, what is my danger if I play this, right? Like, he has to bingo for sure through the eye of outlier. And I guess we should consider the possibility that maybe he'll miss it. I mean, normally I would never consider that. I feel like that is just not possible. I'm pretty sure Austin will spot this bingo in due time, and he's just doing his due diligence to look over the board. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth a moment. He has 6 minutes to use. So yeah.
Here's one for you, Will. Brenjem asks in the chat how people found out about the stream. How can people find out about this stream? How would you encourage people to tell their friends and or find this in the future?
Yeah, so I think the Crescent City team has been doing a pretty good job of posting the link to the stream on pretty much every Facebook group pertaining to Scrabble. But I think maybe there was also a notice of the stream in the NASPA newsletter. But if there are places that we need to be to announce the stream that we aren't, that would be great to have those places suggested, just so that anyone that wants more Scrabble content like this, we make sure they don't miss out on that. Josh Sokol Twitch stream, that's a great place to find out more stuff. And Josh is on hand too. Obviously we, for those interested in the full standings, you can always just type !standings, and these should take you to the standings. Oh man, yeah, as Wolfram says in the chat, I continue to be very scared that Austin's not played this yet. Why, right? Is it possible he's gonna miss this?
I mean, even if he say missed tribunal, I mean tribunal, that is a common everyday English word. I would expect anyone to find that really.
Tribunal, yeah. Well, certainly at this level, this would be surprising.
Yeah.
And also, that would mean we've seen basically 3 of the top players all take a whiff. I mean, Alum Root with the Exo Hook is one thing, but these have been a little different. So let's just see. I still have confidence in Austin that he's going to play this. So.
I do too. I mean, he is emptying the bag, so I think it makes sense to use a lot of his time here to make sure that bingoing is still the correct thing to do. Shout out, hey Mary Aline, hope you're doing well.
Hey Mary, nice to have you. Yeah, I was wondering if I saw the word that Jellamocas is referring to, so I'm glad I spotted that without having to use my quackeliness. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, these are stunning misses. I think this is.
So Will, do you wish you were playing yet?
I don't know if this makes me want to play more or less, but this is really surprising. I have to chalk this up to these players probably have not, even if they have played over the board, a lot of these players have not played in a serious tournament for, getting on 2 years now, right? And there is a muscle memory that goes into sitting down at that table, being streamed, knowing that you're being covered.
Austin has been playing, or has been, helping organize this tournament as well. So
totally.
He was at the venue all day yesterday getting stuff set up. So, he's got more than 100 billion things going on in addition to playing. If it were me, I tend to not play in tournaments that I organize because it's just, it's so
too
much context switching.
Yeah, just too much. That makes total sense. So,
Bax West is right though. This is actually just a conspiracy. This is how we're trying to get people to switch over to the more inclusive English dictionary.
Yeah. So, wow. Okay. So let me see. I think, yeah, it's still Chris's turn. The one thing I'm a little scared of for Chris is just that his time is ticking way down. So the tracking is, let me just get that correct here. So you guys can see there is a lot for Chris to think about. The unseen tiles are a little scary. So I'm just updating. You'll see in a second. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of scary stuff that Austin could have. And Chris is going to draw GE out of the bag, which, man, Chris would lose there to watering, twangier. There's like, or I guess those are the same. That's the same rack. I wonder what else is there that he would actually lose to. But I guess he would also lose to anything ending in G on that left side of the board with Goose there. So Chris had a really tough decision to make. I think that's actually, oddly, that makes some sense to me that Chris would play in that spot. So
yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's going to be home free here, in fact. So Austin does not have a bingo. He is, the scores should be updated now. Thank you. And Austin, and I think once the bag is empty, we don't need the tracking anymore because we can see what the players have. So happy to go back. Yeah, perfect. All right. So, wow, it looks like Chris is going to dodge a big bullet here. And honestly, it's hard. Both players had their chances for sure to steal this game away.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just how games work. It's, whoever makes the fewest mistakes or whoever makes the last mistake, it happens. It's almost sometimes it's really, you're just playing against yourself, right? Like unforced errors are a thing in this.
That is the best. Yeah. Again, that is the best way to approach this game. And it's really hard to do. It being in those situations where if you discover that your opponent, sometimes you don't have to discover, right? You can be playing a game and your opponent plays a really egregious phony word that you challenge off and you still lose the game, right? Those games can really hurt to lose because you feel like, well, my opponent made the biggest mistake in this game and yet I still lost. But really, the way these tournaments work is we really are in this for the long haul, right? Like those games will happen, but many, many more times than your opponent playing a phony and still winning, your opponent playing a phony and losing that and having it be the difference between winning and losing. That's going to be much more common. So you just have to stay the course. And if your process is good, the results will follow, even if the individual games can be very frustrating. So Austin plays anti-war here, leaving just an L. Chris has pretty horrible tiles, but he should definitely be able to score something somewhere enough to stay well ahead of Austin. Just that L left over. The only thing I would worry about if I was Chris is I have so many clunky tiles on my rack. If Chris plays a phony here, he'll lose, right? Because he has so many points worth of tiles. But he's going to play veggie as was being suggested, and that's easily going to be enough for Chris to win. So, wow, this was a barn burner of a game. As Wolfram said, this may not be great Scrabble, but it's great watching. I mean, it's worth noting that like there were a lot of really good plays made in this game. The standard that we have for players at this level is so high that even missing a bingo for each player, that represents a kind of subpar game. That tells you how good these players are.